But I'd like you to remember that you always put a damp-proof membrane before you build up, because you never want moisture to come through the slab, which it can, and up into your walls. So everything is protected from that. So we put, this is just a piece of shingle. You could put 6 mil plastic. You can put Grace's Ice and Water Shield. We've used all kinds of different things for the damp-proof membrane. Now, one of the ways to make sure that you have a random wall is, this goes back to the fairy tale stuff. So this isn't 7 Dwarfs, but you can do a thing where you put large pieces in one pile, medium pieces in another pile, and then we don't have a lot of small pieces, but we do have a few here. So that needs to be cleaned. Has a lot of hairs, and I have. Did you hand me this blue?
Is there any certain place on the wall you should start and work yourself around, or it doesn't matter? Just
if you're working by yourself, it's good to do one wall, leave an opening. Do the next wall, leave an opening.
Okay.
On a larger house, because then you can go back and forth. Because if I was working by myself, and I started this wall here, and I wanted the tuck point, I'm going to come around and tuck point.
I get it. Okay.
So I did every other section. If you do every one, then you're walking.
Yeah. Lots of walking.
Walking. Okay, so
Other
we've
than
got,
that, structurally wise, it doesn't matter. Okay.
No, you could do them like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
if you got somebody on the other side, it doesn't make any
Oh,
difference.
okay.
But there will be some times when you will come out and do it.
Yep.
Do it on your own. So we will take then, if you have any pieces like this, and just hit them with a Sureform plane. Do you have to do this? No, you don't have to do this. It's just an aesthetic to make the face of the log look better.
Does Greg want us to do it?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Good question. So we use a MIM
It's your
stick.
building.
This is M for mortar, I for insulation, M for mortar. So we want to make sure that we're building this so we have 3 inches of mortar. That's kind of the minimum. 3 inches of mortar and an insulation cavity that we're going to stuff the insulation into. And it's very important, if you want maximum R value in a building, that you keep this MIM stick as correct as you possibly can, as even as you possibly can. Now normally, is there a 16-inch one in that mortar pan right there? Yeah. So normally, we're dealing with a 16-inch MIM stick. So it's still 3 inches of mortar, 3.5 maybe, and then you've got a 10-inch or an 8-inch insulation cavity. So this is what you're building if you're doing your home. On a tool shed like this, we're going to use this. So I take.
Well, I have to put a plug in. I just got this vest like last year, and it's wonderful.
This is fashion time.
Yeah, and it's got all these pockets on it. And I can stick things in all these pockets.
Where was that 40 years ago?
I know.
They sell clothing and mortar mixers.
I think it's a fishing vest, actually.
Yeah, and I got it on clearance, so perfect. Oh, that's even better. Yeah.
The Cordwood shopping network.
So we're going to use what I like to call the plop and stop method. So I'm going to use, this is my stop hand, this is my plop hand. So I'm going to set my stop hand here, and I'm going to plop the mortar against it. Now, you don't patty cake this mortar. You treat it kind of rough, you mix it kind of rough, and then you use it kind of rough, in order so that there's no cavities that develop in the mortar. And we use the MIM stick then to start to move the mortar.
What happens then if you get some of the mortar into the insulation?
Usually I don't do that.
If it's your cabin or your house,
You get it out.
take it out of there. Yeah, we'll come to this in a minute.
If you had a wider wall, would you use a string line?
Oh, sure. We're going to level this wall. You can level this wall using a mason's line, which would be, you would put a nail here and a nail here, and then you would cut that mason's line and run it. And then as you're sighting, you sight down for square, level, and plumb. So mason's line is one way to do it. A lot of people like to use this. The other method is to use a 2x4 or a 1x, where I'm coming here and leveling my wood, or I'm coming here and leveling my wood. And if you would put this, there was an engineer in Reedsburg named Don Gerdes, and he invented this swinging plumb bob. So you put a hole in the top here, put a screw here, you put this over the screw, and then you can just take this and run it back and forth. Everything is level and plumb. When you don't want it there, when it's getting in the way, you just pull it off. So swinging plumb bob. Okay, so this is kind of, we're gonna just go to this point here. And Greg said he wanted this to come so it's gonna come back into the wall. And that's why there's only one keyway here.
So if we have a longer wall, like 18 inches or something, you can cut like 8-inch boards and just butt it up against this, right? Or would you leave a little gap? Just so like when you're looking against the wall, it's flat. I mean, what are you going to do with this gap right here?
We're gonna feather this. We're gonna feather the mortar back to there in a 45-degree angle.
Okay, so when you're looking at your walls, it's going to have this angle and you can see this nice wood?
Yep, yep. And if you had two posts, to answer your first question, you can leave a chase in here, a chase way, a blank space, and put your next post here. Because it's gonna be hard to get 9-inch posts
Right.
without interfering with the log end that's gonna come next. So this becomes the beginning of your thermal break that makes sure that your wall has good R value and good resistance to cold and heat. So in other words, it's keeping the heat on the inside, it's also keeping the cold out.
If you put block on the bottom, please make sure you insulate it. You insulate the cavities in the block and you insulate down the center of it. A couple contacted us in the UP that hadn't done that, and they said, gee, it's really cold. And there's not a whole heck of a lot you can do about it at that point. But, so just make sure you do that. And you can use scouts, you can use
See how they
styrofoam, you
they
can
go
use
up a little
styrofoam.
bit to
You
the
can
next
also
level?
use your sawdust for that.
So if I've got my porridge is too hot, porridge is too cold, porridge is just right, 3 bears kind of a thing, if I have them laid out ahead of time, then I can pick up the log end and I look at both faces. I look at one face, I look at the other face. Most people want the most attractive face on the inside of their house. Some people want it on the outside, but most people want it on the inside. Greg, what are we going to do here?
Oh,
He wants the outside.
I think the outside.
Okay, so we're going to
Because
put
it's a shed, right?
we're going to put the most attractive piece on the outside. So as I look at this, this is kind of a horse apiece on this, but I do like this limb here. I like this branch that's coming out.
Yep.
So I'm going to put this branch.
Take the fuzzes off.
That's taking the fuzzes off.
I like the cat legs that's in the book.
Oh, and we've got some. We're going to put a window buck in and a shelf, but not up high where they're going to be. This is just to show you like you did with the wiring. Okay, got it. So this is the small piece. So I'm going to take, since this corner is going to be feathered in, I'm going to take this small piece. Could you hand me a mallet over there, please?
Yes, sir.
Now, our goal here is to have a 1-inch mortar joint. Sometimes you can't avoid going to 2 or 1.5 inches, but the goal is 1 inch. So your mortar joint running all the way along everything is 1 inch is the best practice of the tool. Having said that, that's very hard to maintain 1 inch. That means your wall is going to be about 70% wood and 30% mortar. Most people end up with 60-40 or 50-50. And some people go the other way, 40% wood and 60% mortar. So it becomes an
heavy
aesthetic,
wall.
but if you want, you can learn from this and then modify it to the way you want. So with a hammer, with a mallet especially, I can tap this down. And then I'm actually already starting, well, let me put the next one in. So I'm going to go the next one here. Okay, we're going to go outside with this one. And you'll notice that there will be some mortar that will be on the log faces. If you want to make sure that your you're going horizontal properly, you can use a torpedo level. Set a torpedo level on here. If you're going to air with the torpedo level, you will always want to air with it with the log going out. Level is perfect, but if you're going to air, don't air with the log going in, because if we get a big rain or snow, that could be a channel for the water to come into the house. So torpedo level, after a while you just kind of eyeball it and you got it. But this is a good way to start when you're first doing it. Now, as you can see from this one, it's cut on a little bit of an angle. We're still going to use it. Are we, Greg? And we're going to go, I want to go with the knot on the outside.
Sure.
Good for you, or?
Yeah, not on the
Okay.
outside.
So Greg has the right of first refusal here. If he sees something that he doesn't like in being an artist and an architect, he has the go-ahead to just say, could you turn that the other way, or please don't put that in there. And that's fine. We do that on every site that we do, so that he knows
Please
that
don't take
it's
offense.
his house. And he's got to finish it too. You're going to leave here and he has to finish it.
Yeah.
Christine from
Or
He's
Seth
got
does.
Kinston, Christine
There we
from
go.
Kinston is my mentor.
Okay. So it's going to be artistic. So as you can see, we're already starting to get a kind of a peak going here. So we've got peaks and valleys. So I'm going to put this piece. Now you can either pull this back like this and start to build a little bit of the valley, build up the valley underneath this. And on this side, over here, over here.
I know you can't see that side, but what do you do with those little gaps? Do you
We
care?
will fill those in.
But after you get the log set, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So the first row is probably the most time-consuming one. Huh?
Yep, the most
Yep.
time-consuming and the most critical, because
Yeah.
you're setting your random non-pattern.
Okay, we need a little bit under there just to get ourselves started.
A little bit of mortar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just to bring it up a little bit.
Now, there's
And a
we
little bit under this.
we don't usually use mortar tools like trowels, but you do have your hand. So you do your hand like a mortar trowel, and then if you've got a place like this here, you can slide the mortar into here off of your personal mortar trowel that you carry with you at all times.
And I will talk about it later as we're mortaring, but somebody just asked about the underneath here. You will go back as you're going up rows and check underneath for any gaps or pullaways. And sometimes you'll tuck point and you'll think you have them all done, and then the mortar will pull away a little bit. So you want to double check that 2 or 3 times, because
So we're going to tuck point 3 times. The first time we're going to tuck point with the palm of our hand and the karate chop part of our hand. So I'm going to go in here and karate this a little bit. What this is doing is strengthening the mortar. Then I'm going to take the palm of my hand and I'm going to come around and push this, and I'm going to make sure that there is no gap underneath the log. And this first row is the critical. That's where most of the gaps develop if somebody doesn't do this. So when you're building your place and you're teaching your friends and your relatives, you need to do exactly what Beck and I are doing. You need to explain to them how this goes, because there have been some places where the people just came in and they said, we'll help out, and they just kind of tried to figure it out on their own. Don't let the people figure it out on their own. They'll make suggestions. Some of the suggestions may be good, but you need to tell them what you want in terms of log placement and in terms of how to tuck point and in terms of how to mix mortar, if you let them mix mortar. So I'm going with my hand
And I would also suggest that you double check at the end of the day, before lunch, whenever you're going to take a break, and see how, if you have a big crew, see how the tuck pointing and stuff is going, because that's when you can fix it. You don't want to be knocking dry walls out.
So then, we're not going to really tuck point this right away right now, but I want to show you the 3 stages of it. So next I'm going to take a spoon. Let me give you one.
Let me have that one right here, Rich. You got it.
And then we're going to come around and we're going to start, and we're going to go to the side, underneath. We're going to pull it back. Now, on most builds,
We do the 1/4 inch. Well, let me also say, the discussion we had at Kinstone about the flush, is the flush more weather resistant?
okay, Christine thought that maybe there wouldn't be places for snow to gather. She's in a high wind area coming across that valley there, and she could get snow built up. It hasn't affected much at all. That's such a little tiny ledge. People sometimes put their initials, sometimes draw little figures, sometimes put little stones
Rings,
of a
moon
fish.
rings, and
Yeah.
But you can, if you have whatever mold you want to use, like at the
Oh.
Cordwood Education Center, we had molds of various wild animal prints. And so we
We
had
got coyote,
turkey prints
bear,
and coyotes going up the wall.
skunk, fox,
It's
mink.
pretty cool.
oh, that is cool. So let's just do 1/4 inch on both sides.
Okay,
for the reveal.
sure.
Is that good with everybody?
Sure. So if you look at this one here, okay, and there's a little bit of mortar on the face of the log here. So I'm going to take either my spoon or my knife, and I'm not going to do it with a brush or anything else. I can usually get some of that off with a spoon or a knife as I come here. You won't get it all off. Eventually it'll just flake off. One of the maintenance things on Cordwood before you move into the house is you need to come and brush that mortar off. And you also have to watch where your hand goes, because it's real easy to just put a big wet hand up against the post. You just need to wipe it off as soon as you notice it, or as soon as you do it. With a spray bottle, we've got some spray bottles here. So the bottom is, we're trying to stay flush with this beam that's here. And this mortar, now I reused this mortar once, so I can't reuse this mortar anymore. So Greg will find a spot out here where he wants to put this in a wheelbarrow at the day's end when we clean up and dump that mortar someplace. Just like your cement guys do. So then, as you can see from the brush,
After I told him not to.
So that's kind of what it looks like with the paintbrush. And then some people put tchotchkes in, some people put marbles in, some people put stones in. You don't have to put anything in. It's totally your aesthetic that you
Is that
want.
the finish tuck point?
Yes, this would be considered the finish on this one.
Okay.
You could go back over it one more time. If you go over it too many times, then you start to leach the lime out, and the wall turns really kind of whitey, discolored white. That should never happen. But this can go right up against her, and sometimes if we had a stability situation, we would even screw that, toenail screw that into the post. If there was we were up higher and we were going to put a window box and we wanted to make sure that piece was very stable, you can actually toenail a screw in.
Now, would nails in the pieces be helpful on the edges so you get
Yes.
the contact into the
Yes.
concrete?
Yes, like right here. Yes, it would be good to have a few little roofing nails or screws into here to take that little. And Greg can come and feather this how he wants this. I mean, he might want a certain type of feathering for this.
He's over there eating right now.
Well, that's what happens, you know. You snooze, you lose.
Gonna get what you got, right?
So we're going to take the end of the spoon, the end of a knife, and we're going to make little indentations in the mortar as we leave it. And then when we put the new mortar on there, it should go into those indentations. Now we're going to work right after lunch, so it's not going to be that big a deal. But if you left this for a week, then this would really be a big deal. And then when we come back, when we get ready, we're going to cover these now to break for lunch after you finish your final tuck pointing. When we come back, then we're going to wet down where the new mortar joint is going to go, And we're also going to wet down this relatively cold joint that's here. And we can also wet down the post as we go up. The reason we do that is so that the mortar isn't sucked, the water isn't sucked from the mortar into the log end. So, and you want to do this just lightly because you don't want it to drip down on the faces. That stains the faces. If you need the tuck point and you need a little bit of moisture, when you spray this, just spray it very lightly. Don't spray it on the log face, just on the mortar, because you're trying to then tuck point the mortar smooth.